Now guys, we are going to talk about tuples in TypeScript. Okay, so now let's create a new file and I would just name it as tuples tut.ts, right? So here I would just close everything, and here I'm just going to talk about tuples. So what are tuples? So in TypeScript, tuples are a specific data structure that allows you to create an array like structure. What I mean is exactly what it says. So I would just create an array like structure, but unlike arrays, the elements can be of same or different types. That means, like, if you want some specific type, for example, I would just say my object would be having name, email, password, and things would be provided in a specific order. That means first value must be always a string, second would be a number, and third would always be a boolean, for example. Okay, for example, I would just give you a very good example, and you would just write type, and I would just say, suppose we have a type of person, and I would just define it like this. So I would just say the first field would be, suppose, name, so name is string, and then you would be providing the age, and then suppose you would be providing some extra information, like if I say boolean, that is, I would say, is allowed to vote or not. I would assume that third field for that, and the first field for name, second for age, and third is for is allowed to vote on or not. So true or false would be here, right? So suppose if someone provides some number instead of this boolean value, so what would happen? They must receive an error. Okay, so now suppose if someone wants to create a person, so I would just say yes, the age is 22 and a name is HJ and he's allowed. That means, suppose instead of this, if I just write another string, so you can actually see that here I would just say string is not assignable to type boolean. So order really matters. So you can see first would always be string, second would be number, and third must be a boolean value. Okay, so when you want some specific kind of thing, when you want a specific order to be true for whatever case you want, okay, not just about this specific person, but whatever case. So you can see I have created an array, and I'm just saying this is actually the blueprint of my array. You can see this is the same. You can see this is also an array, looks like an array, but this is known as a tuple. And what is the purpose of this tuple? It simply says I've just defined the type of all the indexes of my array. You can see these are what indexes of your array. This is the 0th index, first index, second index. Similarly, this actually acts as a blueprint for this specific array since I have defined it here, right? Similarly, if you want to define some other user, you can actually do this, right? So it's very easy and it's very useful. So tuple would be used in those cases when you want some specific kind of storage for your array. Okay, in sequence, you can see this is a sequence of string, number, and boolean, right? So now guys, we are going to talk about one more important concept, that is union and intersection. Okay, so what's exactly union and intersection? So let me just open whiteboard for you all, then I'll just explain that. So guys, what's exactly union? So if I say union, if you have learned this in your schools, in mathematics they actually teach this concept a lot in set theory. Set theory is actually a concept, and we also use this in programming also. So the first term is union, second term is intersection. So what's exactly the difference and what are these two terms? So let's understand that. So union is just like, for example, you have a data, suppose you have an array 1 2 3. Okay, suppose you have an array 1 2 3, and suppose you have another array which is 2 3 4. Now here you can see the common elements are what? 2 3 are common elements between these two arrays. Okay, so now when I'm saying union of this, okay, when I'm saying union of this, for example, I have this set diagram. So when I talk about union, I'm just saying union of all the elements. That means all elements must be used. Okay, that means 1 is here, 2 and 3 are actually common, and 4 is actually here. So this is the diagram for union. That means I'm just saying that if I talk about X, the symbol for union in set theory is actually this U. Okay, then we write the next element. So the union of this is what? The complete array 1 2 3 4. That's it. Okay, so you can see the common elements are there and the unique elements are also here, right? That's what we say is the union. Okay, now if I talk about intersection, so intersection is again if you have array 1 2 3 and y is what? 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you can see again we have similar array, but this time if I talk about intersection, what I simply mean is I would just again create the diagram, and it simply means that when I talk about intersection, we have again 1 here, we again have 4 here, and we would write 2 and 3 here. So intersection is actually this specific part. That means this specific part, this is actually what? My intersection part. Okay, that means if I simply ask my program to print the intersection, it's actually like depicted by this symbol. So x intersection y is nothing but the common elements, that is 2, 3. Okay, so now guys, I hope you understood the difference between union and intersection. So we are actually going to use this a lot in our programming also. Now let's talk the same terms in TypeScript. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are again going to teach that. Okay, so union is like you are just providing options, multiple options. That means anything can be can be anything like string or a number or something else. Okay, so here itself I'm going to say that. So let's talk about I'm just going to write it here only because it's a very small concept. Okay, so here I would just say that suppose we have a variable, so I would just say let my var, and yeah, here actually I would just define a type here. So I'll just say suppose we have a type, and I'll just say my type 1 equals, so I would just say something can be a string union a number union a boolean. That means I'm just saying anything from these 3 values. Okay, so union is like you can pick anything, okay, so that's what I've said. Okay, so here I've just said this. Now just say suppose we have a variable, so I'll just say let my var 1 is taking reference from which type, is taking reference from my type 1, and I'm just trying to give it some value, for example null. So you can actually see that I'm getting an error. Why? Because I'm not allowed to give any else value apart from these. So suppose if I give a string value, so you can see it's working. Suppose later on if I just say it's a number value, it's working. Suppose later on if I give it a boolean value, it's working. Suppose if I don't allow a boolean value, you can actually see that now it's giving me error, right? So that's what actually I mean by union, right? So this is what union is in TypeScript. Okay, now similarly we have intersection. Okay, so intersection is very easy, like you are just saying you have some intersection. Okay, you have some intersection, so that means in terms of TypeScript, it's a little bit confusing. Okay, if you talk about general mathematics, which I told you is the correct method, yeah, union is just some of them, and that means all of the elements. Intersection is actually the common elements. But here in case of union, you can see, yeah, it's fine. You can see the union is fine. But if I teach you intersection, you might be confused by that concept. So just try to understand this. So I would just say suppose we have some type of car, and I would just say suppose if I would just say we have one value that is make as string, and then model as string, and then we have another type, and I would just say it's electric car or not. That means we have an electric car type. Okay, so electric cars and our normal cars are similar. There might be some different things. For example, we have extra parameter like battery life. Okay, suppose we have battery life here. So I have a normal car and I have electric car, but you know in an electric car can also have these two things. Okay, so for that what I'm going to say is, actually I would just remove this. So what I'm going to say is we are going to define a type, and I'll just say we have an electric car. Okay, we have an electric car, it's actually electric. Okay, so if something becomes electric, it has some battery life. So I'm just saying an electric car would be having specs of normal car and the electric also. That means I've just combined both of them. Okay, so it's not the intersection, it's actually combination. It's not the common things. Okay, it's actually the combination. That means now electric car can have the properties of this also and this also altogether. Okay, so now if I want to define a car, so let my car, and it's an electric car, so I can easily say suppose it does not have any other properties. For example, if its maker is again Tesla, and I would just say model is model is model 3. You can see it's showing me error. It's showing me error. Why? Because I haven't provided the battery life. Okay, so now what it means is, if I talk about electric car, it's taking the property of this also and this also. So all properties must be provided, right? That's what I mean. So yeah, that's what I've said. So I would just say this is what I mean with the intersection in this case. Okay, so it's a little bit different from the general concept of intersection. That's why I have shown you with this diagram. It's a little bit different, but yeah, I hope now you understood what I mean by intersection in terms of TypeScript.